But a guy had to be removed yesterday from the Annika Pro-Am that featured Caitlin Clark playing in the actual Pro-Am, and the celebrity caddies were Sophie Cunningham, Lexi Hull. They had to get a guy out of there. A guy wasn't acting right.
Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham were just trying to enjoy a golf tournament when security had to remove someone from the course. But this wasn't your typical overzealous fan situation. What happened at the Annika Pro-Am went from awkward to absolutely wild in seconds, and the details that came out afterward are somehow even crazier than the incident itself. Have you ever witnessed someone get escorted out of a sporting event? What happened? Share your stories below.
Caitlin Clark's Pro-Am interrupted by man claiming to be Sophie Cunningham's boyfriend. Wow. Wow. A man appearing to be in his 70s and claiming to be the boyfriend of WNBA star Sophie Cunningham was escorted off the grounds of the Pelican Golf Club during Caitlin Clark's Pro-Am round after apparently being the victim.
So, Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Lexi Hull are out at the Pelican Golf Club for the Annika Pro-Am, having what should be a chill day of golf, celebrity appearances, and fan engagement. Clark's playing, Sophie and Lexi are caddying in their matching fever gear. Everything's wholesome and fun. Then some guy starts shouting for Sophie Cunningham from the gallery. Not just once, multiple times. Loud enough that security notices, and when they approach him to figure out what's going on, he drops an absolutely unhinged claim. He's Sophie Cunningham's boyfriend.
According to the Daily Mail, Cunningham, who was among the celebrity caddies for the her Indiana Fever teammate, was walking the 10th fairway when the man shouted for her several times, calling her, quote, Soph. Cunningham, 29, ignored the calls. Two members of the Bel Air Police Department were assigned to the group for security. One stopped the man, demanding to see his driver's license and taking a photo to identify him. Although he complied, he told the officer it was not necessary.
Let that sink in for a second. A man who appears to be in his 70s is standing on a golf course screaming for a 29-year-old professional basketball player, insisting to police officers that they're dating the Bel Air Police Department, who were assigned to the group for security, stopped him immediately and asked for identification. The guy complied, but then told the officer checking his ID that it wasn't necessary because, and I cannot stress this enough, he's with Sophie. As if that explanation would just clear everything up and the cops would apologize for the inconvenience.
When he produced messages from social media accounted purporting to Cunningham's, the officer told the man he was likely being...
But it gets so much worse. When pressed about this supposed relationship, the man pulled out his phone and showed officers messages from a social media account he believed belonged to Sophie Cunningham. And here's where this goes from weird to genuinely sad. He'd sent this fake account almost $2,000 in gift cards. $2,000. Because he thought Sophie Cunningham, a professional athlete with endorsement deals and a WNBA salary, desperately needed iTunes cards or whatever gift card scam these catfishers were running.
Man said he had sent his, quote, girlfriend almost $2,000 in gift cards through the account. This old man thought Sophie Cunningham was actually talking to him.
The officer on scene had to explain to this man that he was being scammed, that the account wasn't real, that Sophie Cunningham was not in fact his girlfriend and had never asked him for money, but the guy wasn't having it. He kept insisting he just needed to talk to Sophie so she could verify his story. Because in his mind, this was all just a big misunderstanding that would get cleared up once Sophie confirmed they were together. The level of denial required to maintain that belief while police are literally escorting you off a golf course is staggering. A sheriff's golf cart showed up, because of course that's how you get removed from a golf event, and they started loading him up. As he's getting in the cart, he's still protesting. So what? You're going to eject me for speaking to my girlfriend? Like the cops are the unreasonable ones in this scenario. Then as they're driving him away, he's still calling out, "If I could just speak to her," as if proximity would somehow make his delusion real. Now let's talk about what Sophie Cunningham was dealing with during all this. She's out there trying to caddy for her teammate, have fun, engage with actual fans, and some stranger is screaming her name claiming to be her boyfriend while security intervenes. That's not just uncomfortable, that's legitimately scary. Because catfishing scams that lead to in-person confrontations can turn dangerous fast. The fact that this particular guy seemed more deluded than threatening is fortunate, but it easily could have gone differently. And Sophie handled it exactly right. She ignored him completely. Didn't engage, didn't try to explain, didn't give him any attention whatsoever. Just kept walking and let security do their job. That's the correct response when someone you don't know is claiming to have a relationship with you. Zero acknowledgement. Because engaging at all, even to deny it, gives these people what they want: direct interaction with their target. The worst part about this whole situation is how common these scams have become. According to The Athletic, which recently did a deep investigation into catfishing schemes targeting athletes, this happens all the time. Fans get deceived into believing they're communicating with their sports heroes and get tricked into making payments through cryptocurrency or gift cards. The scammers create convincing fake accounts, use photos stolen from the athletes' real accounts, and prey on lonely or vulnerable people who desperately want the attention to be real. Members of the LPGA Tour have been especially targeted by these scams. Scott Stewart, who works for a security firm used by the LPGA, told The Athletic that people regularly show up at tournaments believing they've paid for private dinners with players. But here's where it gets even darker. Some victims show up angry, wanting to confront the athlete because they think the athlete personally scammed them and kept their money. They don't believe it was a fake account. They think the actual player took their cash and ghosted them. Can you imagine being Sophie Cunningham and having to worry that some stranger might show up hostile because they got scammed by someone pretending to be you? That's not just an annoyance, that's a legitimate safety concern. These athletes have zero control over fake accounts using their names and images, but they're the ones who have to deal with the fallout when victims come looking for answers or confrontation. The technology making these scams worse is evolving rapidly. AI voice cloning means scammers can now make it sound like the actual athlete is talking to victims. Video deepfakes are getting more convincing. It's becoming harder and harder to distinguish what's real from what's fabricated. So these elderly or vulnerable targets genuinely believe they're in relationships with these athletes because the evidence seems legitimate. Photos, messages, voice notes, all fake, but convincing enough to drain bank accounts. And look, it's easy to mock someone for falling for this stuff, but elder fraud is a massive problem. Older people grew up in an era where, if someone called claiming to be from the electric company, it probably was the electric company. They didn't develop the skepticism required to navigate modern scam culture. So when a social media account with Sophie Cunningham's face starts messaging them and building a relationship, many don't have the tools to recognize it as fake. That doesn't make them stupid, it makes them victims. The fact that this guy was 70 years old and genuinely believed he was dating a 29-year-old WNBA player he'd never actually met is sad. He spent $2,000 on gift cards for someone who doesn't exist. He showed up at a golf tournament expecting his girlfriend to be happy to see him, and instead, he got escorted off the property by police while everyone watched. That's a rough day by any measure, regardless of how delusional the thinking that led there. But from Sophie, Caitlin, and Lexi's perspective, this was a disruption to what should have been a fun event. They're trying to raise money for charity, engage with legitimate fans, and enjoy some time outside the basketball grind. Then security has to intervene because someone in the crowd is causing a scene. That takes attention away from the actual event and creates an uncomfortable environment for everyone involved. What's wild is this happened right after Sophie accidentally hit a spectator with an errant drive. That moment was hilarious and wholesome. Sophie buried her face in Caitlin's shoulder in embarrassment, then ran over to hug the guy she hit, took pictures with him, and signed the ball. Classic sports moment that everyone enjoyed. Then, like an hour later, they're dealing with someone getting removed by police. The emotional whiplash of going from lighthearted fun to legitimate security concern is jarring. The catfishing element also highlights how bizarre fame has become. In the social media age, athletes have always dealt with obsessed fans. But the parasocial relationships enabled by social media create situations where people genuinely believe they have personal connections with celebrities they've never met. Ad and scammers actively exploiting that delusion for financial gain. And you get scenarios where someone shows up at a golf tournament claiming to be Sophie Cunningham's boyfriend. What makes this particularly insidious is that the athletes themselves have no way to prevent it. Sophie can't stop someone from creating a fake account using her photos. She can report it, but 10 more pop up immediately. She can post warnings on her real account, but the people being targeted often don't follow the real account. They only interact with the fake one, so she's powerless to protect her own image or prevent people from being scammed in her name. That's frustrating and violating in ways most people don't consider. The security response was appropriate and professional. The Bel Air police officers assigned to the group handled it quickly and discreetly. They identified the guy, determined he wasn't an immediate threat, explained he was being scammed, and removed him from the premises without creating a bigger scene. That's exactly how that situation should be managed. No escalation, no drama, just efficient problem-solving that prioritized everyone's safety. But the fact that this level of security is even necessary at a charity golf event says something about where we are culturally. Caitlin Clark can't play golf without police escorts because her popularity is so massive that crowds become unmanageable and situations like this arise. That's the trade-off of fame at her level. You get the endorsements and the platform, but you lose the ability to exist in public spaces without security infrastructure. And poor Caitlin's just trying to work on her golf game and support a good cause. She probably heard the commotion, saw security moving in, and thought, oh great, here we go again. Because this is her reality now, every public appearance comes with the possibility that someone will do something wild that requires intervention. That's exhausting. There's no off switch. Even at a golf tournament, you're on high alert. The multiple guys who pretended Sophie's ball hit them because they wanted attention from her is also peak modern sports fandom. She actually hit one person, but several others fell down hoping to get the same treatment. That's pathetic, but also kind of funny in a sad way. Everyone's so desperate for a moment with these athletes that they'll fake injuries for a photo op. The thirst is real and deeply embarrassing. What this incident really exposes is how vulnerable athletes are to this kind of harassment and exploitation. They can't control who uses their image. They can't prevent scammers from targeting vulnerable people in their name. They can't stop delusional individuals from showing up at public events with completely fabricated stories about their relationships. All they can do is rely on security, ignore the chaos, and hope nobody gets hurt. The fact that The Athletic felt compelled to do an entire investigation into catfishing scams targeting athletes shows how widespread this problem has become. It's not isolated incidents anymore. It's a systematic issue affecting athletes across multiple sports, with financial and safety implications that leagues and security firms are actively trying to address. And there's no easy solution because the scammers are always evolving their tactics to stay ahead of prevention efforts. For Sophie Cunningham specifically, this has to be unnerving. She's out there trying to live her life and build her career, and strangers are creating fake versions of her to defraud people. Then those victims show up at her workplace demanding answers. That's not just annoying, it's a legitimate threat to her peace of mind and physical safety. Because while this particular guy seemed harmless, the next one might not be. The lesson here is that fame in 2025 comes with complications previous generations of athletes never had to navigate. Michael Jordan didn't have to worry about deepfake videos or AI voice clones. Serena Williams didn't deal with catfishing scams creating fake relationships in her name. Modern athletes face threats and violations that are entirely new, and the systems to protect them are still catching up. So yeah, what should have been a fun charity golf event turned into a security situation because scammers are out here ruining everything. Sophie Cunningham handled it perfectly, security did their job, and hopefully that guy learned a lesson about internet scams. If you want more no-fluff sports content, hit that like and subscribe. Ever been scammed online? Drop your story below.